anyone wishing to speak in favor of a case, and 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they must share the 10-minute slot. At this time, please join me in the members of the Zoning Advisory Board in a moment of silence in honor of our fallen officer, Officer DeSalle. Please stand in silence, please. Thank you. I would also like to give thanks to my fellow veterans. Thank you for your service. At this time, we will have the invocation and prayer.
Thank you. If everybody will just take a moment to definitely think about our veterans today and how much they sacrifice each and every day, and as well as their families who go along with them in their journey and provide their support at home. We all know that in Henry County, we have many families that are active and retired veterans, and those that served us shortly, so we thank that. May we be able to make decisions today that provide a positive movement in our community for the good of all, and that our guidance be one of understanding and empathy and acceptance as we move forward in each of our deliberations. Now may we pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Can I have acceptance of the amended agenda, please? A motion to accept the amended agenda.
So moved.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. VM and a second by Ms. Dawn. All in favor? Motion carries. Can I have acceptance of the 2020 Zoning Advisory Board schedule? Have a motion to accept the 2022 Zoning Advisory Board schedule.
We accept the 2022 advisory schedule.
So moved.
Okay. Thank you. And we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Staff, any comments?
Yes, sir. Good evening. So as part of the amended agenda, the request advertised as VR 2115, South City Partners LLC of Atlanta, Georgia, regarding a variance from development standards for property located at 2080 Jonesboro Road. The request was for relief from parking requirements located in District 2. This request has been withdrawn by the applicant and will not be heard this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional comments?
No, sir.
Any further comments?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. If not, call the first case, please.
CU 2108, Divine Love Montessori of Mcdonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property at 180 Nail Drive in Land Lot 117 of the 6th District. And the request is to expand an existing church facility. District 2, presented by Kenta Lanham.
Good evening, Chair and board members.
Good evening.
The request in front of you is for property located at 180 Nail Drive, as shown on the aerial maps in your exhibit books, as well as on the overhead screen. The property is 9.77 plus or minus acres. The property is currently zoned RA, residential agricultural, and does have an existing church facility on the property. Churches may operate and exist in the RA zoning district with an approved conditional use. This is the the survey for the property, which was recently received by staff earlier this week. On July 2nd, 1996, the Henry County Board of Commissioners approved a conditional use request to allow a religious facility on the property. The approval letter does specifically state that the zoning entitlement is only granted to the first 3 acres of the property. It's not very clear, it's an older file, it's not very clear as to why that approval is only for the first 3 acres. In 2003, an accessory structure was built, hosting a gymnasium, classrooms, and youth rooms. The 3 acres does not extend past the accessory building, thus that building legally cannot be used in conjunction with the church. The purpose of this request is to extend that original zoning entitlement to the rear of the property so that legal use of the accessory building may continue as intended, that is, to serve as accessory to the church. The applicant has occupied a space within the principal structure of the front building since January 2019 as an accessory use, specifically a private school. The applicant is now seeking to move operations to the rear building. And I believe the applicant will be able to provide a reasoning as to why they are looking to move towards that back building. In any event, staff does recommend approval of the conditional use request to extend the zoning entitlement with 4 conditions, which are shown on the overhead screen. Thank you, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for staff? Okay. If not, we'd like the applicant to come forward, please. I'm sorry, Mr. Richard, go ahead.
Well, I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but back about 1995 or 1996, the Board of Commissioners, along with the Board of Tax Assessors, felt that as churches were being developed on a tract of land, that they would be tax exempt on the section of the property that they were being built, but the balance of it, which might remain undeveloped for some time, would still be taxable. So that's how that policy came about. So.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record?
Good evening, my name is Chloe Dunlap, and you said state my address?
Yes.
My personal address?
Yes.
173 Lassie Lane, Mcdonough, Georgia, 30253.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dunlap, do you have anything to add to staff recommendation?
No, it pretty much explained what we're looking to do. This is Pastor Jack and Elder Jerry, and I've been leasing from them since January 2019. And so we're just trying to transition to the back building to further our program.
Okay. Anything further?
No.
Okay. Does the board have questions for the applicant? No question? Okay. Well, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Okay. Does the board have, let me ask, we will now allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. No one's coming forward. We'd also like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer D'Alba. I'm at 125 Nail Drive. My concern and reason for the opposition is the traffic. I live on Nail Drive, between the church and Oakland Elementary. Nail Drive is an extremely narrow road from the school to Route 81. Currently, we have a lot of traffic on Nail Road for people bypassing the intersection of Route 20 and Route 81. We also have traffic backed up 5 days a week, twice a day for an hour, from parents bringing their children to school or picking them up from Oakland Elementary. This leads to damage to my driveway because of the broken road. This leads to me not being able to leave my home because of the traffic and the road is so narrow. It is said that this expansion will not increase traffic, but I beg to differ. Also, it says that they only want to move to the back building of the gym, but this is asking for extending to the entire amount of that property. My concern is that the allowance of this expansion will be future expansion and additional buildings and continued traffic. I appreciate the want to expand the school. I do, and I appreciate what they're doing. We definitely need good schools for our children. My opposition stands until Nail Drive can be expanded and widened to allow for better thoroughfare. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have approximately 8 minutes. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Joan Scott. I live at 133 Nail Drive in Mcdonough, Georgia. I live directly next door to the church. My kitchen window is 50 feet from their parking lot. That's how close I am. You'll notice in their application package, what stands out to me is that the 1996 original Board of Commissioners conditions that were placed on the church allows for the church facility and accessory uses on the front 3 acres of the property. When they built the gym structure in 2003, they violated that condition. Every function they've ever had in that gym, behind the gym, in the grassy area, they have built a playground area that's an accessory use. They have violated this condition for nearly 20 years at my expense. They know it's an ongoing issue. This has been a problem for, again, almost 20 years, going back and forth with the church, because I have had to complain so many times about all of their events, all of the noise. They have been so irresponsible. All I have ever asked them to do is just respect that I'm their next door neighbor. They have had week-long Boy Scout camps with 60 children camping out in the wooded and grass area for a week at a time. They've had bonfire parties at Halloween with a tractor pulling, like a hayride, where they had a bonfire, and when they left, the fire caught the fire caught the woods on fire, and I had to call the fire department to come extinguish it. They have had events with outdoor amplified music time and time again. They've had events of overnight children having graduation parties playing basketball at 4 a.m. The current Montessori function that's happening, apparently they say in the front of the church, I don't believe that's actually accurate, because I see kids playing in that playground all the time during the day. And I have to presume that's the children from the Montessori school, so I don't believe that's actually very accurate. If you approve this, in addition to the traffic issues that my next door neighbor presented to you, you will literally be making a very bad situation much, much worse. The reason, in my opinion, the original Henry County Board of Commissioners restricted them to the front 3 acres was because of my house. Nothing in that area has changed in all of these years. No other structures have been built. The land on the other side of their property is still vacant. The only thing I can imagine that the Board of Commissioners restricted them for was because my house is set so far back that by them only having the 3 acres frontage would have not interfered with my peace and tranquility. By the 20 years almost that they have been violating that, they have absolutely violated my ability to live peacefully and tranquilly on my own property. I have records of instance after instance after instance where, and every single time, all I have asked them to do is just put themselves in my place where, could you please just have empathy? What if your next door neighbor was behaving the way you behave? In 2014, they rented their property out to the Sundance Channel for some television series where they had campers and diesel buses with hundreds of extra cast members parked in the grassy area, diesel generators going all night long from the makeup trailers. This is the kind of thing they've done for years and years and years. And if you approve this, I can't even imagine how many more issues I'm going to have to face because of this. They have not acted responsibly. They don't deserve this zoning. But if you must, according to their request, it says the rear, they want the rear 6.77 acres to be zoned so that they can add the Montessori school. But really, all they really want is for the back gym building to be utilized for the Montessori school. They don't need the whole 6.77 acres zoned that way. They need the back building zoned. Because I'm telling you, I'm sorry I'm so passionate, but you have no idea how much this has affected me. If the whole 6.77 acres is zoned, they're going to build a building. They're going to build a school. That's what they're going to do. I had not a doubt in my mind. They will build another building. And what is that going to do to my property value? What is that going to do to my peace of mind, even worse than what they've already done? If you must approve this, which, given the traffic situation, I don't see how that's not going to make things even more overwhelmingly miserable for everyone who lives on that street, but at least then just approve the use of the back building for the school and not the whole 6.77 acres. If anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to provide you with any of the evidence of the instances that I have described to you. They have acted so irresponsibly. I have begged them to please be considerate of me, and they simply refuse. In fact, I sent them a letter July of 2020 outlining all of this and asking at a minimum to just please, some very basic requests. Don't have functions outside with more than 5 or 10 people at a time. Ask your congregants to not congregate in the parking lot after whatever functions they have or their services they have. Keep the volume of the music in the church lower where I don't constantly hear the bass guitar and the drums. I sent them this letter, certified return receipt, which I have a copy of, and they never responded. So by them actually even making this request is their response to me. That's what they think of me as their neighbor. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
We have 2 minutes for anyone else wishing to speak in opposition. 2 minutes for anyone else wishing to speak in opposition. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Okay. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? And the applicant?
Yes, for
The
the
applicant, please come
applicant.
forward. Yes, Mr. Risher.
Yes, we have in our packets a drawing called the Family Life Center, and I guess this is the accessory building, that we're talking about. But I see that there are youth activity rooms and classrooms and a gymnasium. Is the gymnasium going to be part of the school activities?
Currently, we will not be using the access to the gym. My school is licensed through Bright from the Start. Just to kind of piggyback on what she said, I have 12 students, just 12. I'm not trying to build on their property. I'm not trying to build another program. I'm not building anything else. I have 12 students. We are licensed in the front building. Bright from the Start does come to our building, and I don't even know if they're gonna approve us access to the gym. We're licensed in the front building. Our children walk to the playground, and that's it. Like, as far as anything that she has going on with the church, I know nothing of that. I've only been there since 2019. But as far as the gym, I don't know if Bright from the Start would approve us to utilize that space.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Any additional questions for the applicant? Mr. Richard?
No, not right now.
Okay. If so, you may be seated. Yes.
So to clarify here, there's two buildings and you're using it during the day, but there's another entity that uses it for other purposes?
I'm not for sure. Pastor Jack or Elder Jerry could answer those questions. Our school is there from 7:30 until 4:30 right now, and we utilize the principal building. And that's it. Sometimes we have events, but not very frequently. Like I said, we're a small school, we're growing. We've only been open since 2019.
Being that you're saying that, I have a question. Now, why do you need additional space? According to this, property consists of 6 point, request to expand to existing church facility.
The back building it has a recreational licensing is what I was under the impression. And so in order to be licensed for us to be in that back building, we had to have a conditional licensing. And that building didn't have a conditional licensing. So that's all we wanted to utilize is just that space that's already built. There's classrooms in it. That's all we wanted to use was that space. We're not building anything. I'm not building anything else on their property.
Are you licensed to use the front space?
Yes, we are licensed through Henry County and through Bright from the Start.
Okay. And in order to move to the back, you need additional license?
We need the conditional licensing so that we can get a new CO for the back building so that Bright from the Start can then license that building.
Okay.
Because it doesn't have the same licensing as the front building, the principal building that we're in now, currently.
And is the back building licensed or being used at this point?
It has a recreational entity is what I was under the impression of.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Ms.
What you plan on doing?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you plan on is it to grow your school larger, or the specific reason for moving is to get more students, or do you have a plan?
We were asked by the church if we could utilize that space. When I came to Henry County to do the zoning to get everything resubmitted, they informed me that that building didn't have the conditional use that we needed for that building. To say I would like my school to grow, absolutely. My goal is to move from there. My goal is not to stay there permanently forever. I would like to do one more school year there, but I don't want to build on their property. They've been gracious enough to give us this opportunity to be able to start a school, and so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ben?
Are you the owner of the property? Or
I am not the owner of the
Right,
property. I
so-
lease from Cornerstone Bible Church.
So are you the applicant for this, or
Yes.
is it the owners that are really going to get the advantage of this in the long run?
They're here.
Okay. And it's just, it seems like if you're only going to be there a year, it's really, they would be getting really this, this conditional use? Yeah. Is that, how does that work from staff?
So conditional uses are essentially permanent with the with the property, unless otherwise stated in a condition, for example. The conditional uses, they stay with the property even if the change in ownership were to happen.
Right, so the conditional use really goes to the owner of the property.
Correct.
It's not for, even though you would be the applicant, it's really going to stay with the church itself.
Correct.
And we could condition it to, you could have this use until you move somewhere else. We can condition it that no other buildings could be built under this conditional use. You know, we could do things of that nature.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other board members have questions? And I guess I do have one additional question. Now, why is it that if you're staying there just a year, why can't you continue to use the front facility?
I'm Jerry Briggs.
Jerry.
I attend Cornerstone. I'm an
Please
elder there.
state your name and address for the record, Jerry.
I'm Jerry Briggs. My address is 149 Hampton Road, Fayetteville, Georgia. And I'm an elder at Cornerstone, where Chloe School is. And we were just wanting to kind of have that separation so that she could have her own space and then we could have our own space, whereas right now we're both kind of sharing that front building and the back building is not utilized as much. So it would just make it easier for all of our ministries to be able to have all of our kids' classrooms and everything in one building, and then all of her classrooms and everything in the other building. So there'd be less interference. They have pretty strict rules about people coming and going throughout the day at the school, which is very understandable for young kids, and that makes it difficult for the pastor to be there sometimes in any other meetings or anything like that. So.
And being that you're saying that now, why can't you move the others in the back area and let her continue to use the front area?
Sure. So just logistically speaking, you know, the front building has our sanctuary, the kitchen, you know, just all the stuff that, you know, it's kind of how we've done church, you know, set up, you know, the sanctuary and all that. And it's easier to have everybody closer together on Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, things like that, you know, having the kids close to the parents, and if there's an issue, nursing moms, things like that.
Okay. You've heard the complaints from the neighbors. Have you had any incidents out there with your neighbors or with the police being called, code enforcement, or anyone being called out?
Yeah, Joni and I have a relationship. You know, we've spoken over the years. I've been there since 1996 when I was a lot younger than I am now, obviously. My phone, we have text conversations going back a few years. I would disagree with her characterization of some of the events. We have canceled events and moved events specifically because we don't want to have issues with Joni. Things that we would normally do that I think are perfectly reasonable for a church to do, church picnics and Halloween trunk or treats and things like that, that we don't do because we don't want the problems, the issues. You know, she came over and, you know, kind of yelled at me, gotten on me for cutting the grass there by myself because I was there for 4 or 5 hours. Even during coronavirus, when she sent that letter, I didn't cut the grass for about 6 weeks. And the first time I come over there, she complained about it. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions for the board or from the board for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Does the board have additional questions for staff? Okay, if not, call the case, please.
CU 2108, Divine Love Montessori of Mcdonough, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property at 180 Nail Drive in Land Lot 117 of the 6th District. The property consists of 6.777 plus or minus acres, and the request is to expand an existing church facility. District 2 presented by Kenta Lanham.
Okay. We've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
A motion to approve with conditions.
Okay. We have a motion to approve with condition. Do we have a second? I have a second by Mr. Risher. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Call the next case, please.
CU 2107, the Pacific Group of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property on Highway 138 East to the east of the intersection of Highway 138 and Flat Rock Road in land lots 62 and 63 of the 11th District. The property consists of 38.0 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision. District 4, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Good evening. Let's see if I can get the. All right. Yes, this is a conditional use for the property located on Highway 138 east of the intersection of 138 and Flat Rock Road. This case actually came before the ZAB board July 8th, 2021. And since then, the owner has been able to acquire property to complete the entire acreage. The original conditional use, the original conditional use was for 36 acres. They have since acquired the other 1.17 acres, which is highlighted in the gray. And so once the conditional use was approved, you couldn't modify that the conditional use so that it come back and actually apply for a new application. And so, staff actually has recommended approval of the condition of the request with the conditions. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have questions for staff? Okay, if there's no questions, we'd like for the applicant to come forward, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. My name is Steve Moore, Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, Mcdonough, Georgia. Here tonight representing the Pacific Group in both of these concurrent requests, the associated cases of the conditional use modification and the subsequent rezoning request. As Toussaint mentioned, I believe our request is pretty straightforward. We had met with Commissioner Thomas after the last ZAB hearing, and she had a recommendation that, really would make sense to pick this other property up if you could and incorporate it into the project. That way you don't have an out parcel that's inconsistent with the rest of the subdivision internally and externally as people are driving past the subdivision and seeing a house that's just different than the rest of the subdivision. So my client was able to put the property under contract, and that's our purpose for coming tonight. The resulting yield difference between what you approved and recommended for approval last time is 2 lots. So we added 1.7 acres of property, which resulted in 2 lots that were added to the list. I think we're at 51 lots now. We were at 49. We have 2 entrances, as is required by the fire department and by your code. All of the other conditions that were proposed and approved in the last hearing, the 13,000 square foot minimum, 15,000 square foot average lot sizes, 80 foot wide, all of that has still been honored and maintained. All we're doing is just requesting that additional property to be added. And because I guess the conditional use has a minimum acreage requirement, their staff has recommended that the conditional use be re-evaluated for the entire property with this being combined so that it meets that minimum acreage requirement. So we've read all of the conditions. They're acceptable. Hopefully this is something that you guys will agree that it makes sense for the overall cohesiveness of that community. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got.
Okay. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Okay. And no question, you may be seated, sir. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. Well, not exactly 10 minutes, 7 minutes remaining. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the case? Okay. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Mike Awad, 910 Highway 138, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. I'm also here on behalf of all the neighbors, 922, 851, 893, 971. First, I would like to start the representation by quoting from Mr. Stacy Jordan last time that this property is in the gray area where we have to respect the owner's right in development and gaining financial benefit versus the neighborhood right to keep their quality of life. First thing, on the criteria number 1, that the planning and zoning is saying that there is no adverse effect is going to be on the traffic. Actually, this claim is not really accurate. On October 28th of 2021, I don't know if we are allowed to show video or stuff like that, but major accident happened, including a car flipped over. I have the video for it. And lead to the blockage of the highway starting from Flat Rock up till Hemphill, which usually happen in all the accidents, that they have to block this because it's too narrow over there. Luckily that nobody got hurt, but actually this was blocked for about 1.5 hours. On October 29th, around 3:45, major car accident again, blocked the traffic for 2 hours, including 4 cars. It came to a point that the tow truck can't even make it in. The emergency vehicle couldn't make it in. The ULDC mentioned in Chapter 1, Section 4.00 that the intent for the development is to promote the safety and convenience, order, the prosperity, and the general welfare of the present and the future inhabitant of Henry County, losing congestion of traffic, further traffic safety. If the Planning and Zoning Department would pull a report from the police department regarding how many accidents happened just in this section right there, starting from the bridge up to Flat Rock, they're gonna be shocked. We live over there and we know exactly what's happening over there. At least we deal with this around 4 times a month, minimum. Second thing, on the school letter that was proposed by the petitioner, it's saying that we only gonna need 4 classes because there's only gonna be 51 dwelling or new houses that's gonna be. So they didn't put in consideration the Miller's Mill subdivision right behind us that just opened and the field just open for selling. So definitely within 12-month period, which is the proposed period by the developer to finish the subdivision, we're gonna need almost 10 classes. We have a huge one that's coming on Miller's Mill and everybody knows over here. We're saying all that, this is gonna be a public interest conflict. Definitely there's gonna be a disaster in this area. A part of this development is actually by the guardrail. So just to be clear on this one, this 38 acres is 3 properties. 34 acres property with only 200 frontage. The new house that is the subject right now, which is 1.7, have around 290 on the frontage. And the third property, which is considered a dead property because it's blocked by the guardrail. So in order for the developer, as he said, to do what he want to do, then he went ahead and he just acquired this property or put it under contract. That gave him some relief, definitely, by acquiring some more frontage. But we'll come to a very important point over here, the legality and the integrity of acquiring this property. Because the property belongs to Mr. John Gardner. And the letter from the owner that was submitted to the Planning and Zoning is signed by Mr. James Gardner. The property is an estate. Mr. James Gardner, he signed on behalf of Mr. John Gardner using a general power of attorney that we don't have a copy of it. But that's still not the point. He said that the power of attorney is dated February of 2014, 8 years ago. According to Georgia law and the House Bill 221, July 1st, 2017, that was adopted by the legislation in Georgia, UP0A, Section 10, 6B1, it's requiring on the power of attorney when it comes to a real estate to be specifically said that the attorney, in fact, had the right on behalf of the principal to go ahead and acquire for zoning or for any kind of development. And that's a copy of Georgia Code, Title 10, Chapter 6. Mr. James Gardner doesn't have that. Moreover, it's one of the requirements over here in the application for the petitioner as an owner of the property to state his phone number, his address, and the way to contact him. It's not. All what we have is just an email address over here. Even if there is a power of attorney, as I said, it's required by Georgia State regarding the real estate to give him the authority for that. And it's required to be in the Superior Court, registered in the Superior Court, which doing some search, there is nothing under Mr. James. Mr. John, which is the owner of the property, he didn't sign anything. I don't know if there is a power of attorney from him or no, but regardless anyway, the fact that Mr. James, and by the way, he's on the estate of the 33 acres. So the fact that Mr. John is not here to say anything like that or to approve anything like that, plus the fact that Mr. James have an interest in this property in the back and rezoning everything is considered illegal from the petitioner.
Sir, can I stop you a minute?
Absolutely.
We have 3 minutes and 28 seconds remaining. I noticed that there are someone else wishing to speak.
Sure.
And the legal side of this, we have no control of. The legal issues that may or may not take place out there, we have no control of. Who signed it or who's responsible for signing it, that would be on the property owners and those involved with signing it. So I would like to allot some time for someone else wishing to speak in opposition. If you have something further in reference to opposition, you can move forward, but I also would like to allot someone else something that time as well.
Okay.
We have 10 minutes that's going to be exhausted in 3 minutes and 28 seconds.
I'll just take the 28 seconds to add the negative impact that's going to be added on my property in violation of the ULDC for losing of privacy to my property due to the fact that's going to be 25 dwelling that's going to be right behind my property with a public access that's coming to it due to the subdivision. I would leave some more time for anything, and if the board is not concerned with the legality, then we'll just see who's concerned with the legality of this one, and we'll deal with it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ma'am, please state your name and address for the record.
Pam Atkinson, 925 Highway 138 East, Stockbridge.
Okay.
You know, we came to the last meeting, and I see they've tried to meet your expectations, and the traffic is a serious problem. I don't think you can confront that, but it is something to think about. That accident that happened on the 28th, I had just pulled out of my driveway at 8:12. My son was pulling out. He rents the house next to us at 9:17. He was pulling out at 8:15, and we have the video of just in front of him, cars were just going everywhere. And he had to back up in his driveway for one car to come into his driveway to keep it from crashing into the other cars. So it is a serious problem. It was, I had my grandson with me. We took up my dog to be clipped. We were coming right back, and he does virtual school. It was almost 12 o'clock before we were allowed to get back in our driveway. It happened at 8:15. So that's not a rare thing on 138. So the people that are going to be buying these houses have no idea what they're moving into, and that being so close to that red light is a serious problem. There's accidents there all the time. That was a pretty severe one, but it happens pretty often. And all I ask, I mean, the county needs to develop. I understand that. You can't stop progress. I fully understand that. A lot of progress has happened since we moved there, and we started building our house in '02. And so, you know, you expect that, but you do expect the county, as the taxes you pay, to prepare for these changes and to be ready for it. And so I say this, these contractors, these developers, they want to make money. The county wants to make money. They want the tax dollars off these houses. I fully understand that. But you have to do it in a strategic development way. And when you put a situation where all of the people that already live there, and even the new people moving in, are going to be all in a dangerous state. I have a husband that's a veteran, drives a vehicle from an injury with hand controls. He has to pull out of that driveway. We have a 13-year-old grandson that we're raising. In 2 to 3 years, he'll be driving. He'll have to pull out of that driveway. Other people have the same situation we do. If the road could work for this, I have no problem. But the road is not in any way set for this, and it's going to create so many problems. I just feel sorry for anyone who might buy a house there, because they're going to come into it not realizing what rush hour looks like, what afternoon traffic looks like. And I'll just challenge each of you to think about this. One of the things that's really missing in our world today is delayed gratification. And that's something as adults we're supposed to know, and that it's an important thing. Children look for instant gratification. Builders want to make money, developers want to make money, and that is their instant gratification. But it's up to the people that hold the powers that would be to say, well, we want you to do this, but we'd like to develop in such a way that will be success, that people won't be injured and hurt by our decisions. And if you just allow them to come in there and make money, the county makes money. If you were raising children, that's not what you would want to have the outcome of your children. I don't think you want that as outcome of this county. We certainly don't want to live in a county that people are not thinking things through and not thinking about the welfare of the people that might be in the houses that are going to be developed or the people that are already there. So it's a matter of being wise enough, mature enough.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We've
I
exhausted
appreciate
the
you
clock.
listening. If anyone would like to see this video of the accident, it's available.
Thank you. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? I have one question, Mr. Toussaint. Have traffic study been actually done, or I know DOT is not here, but
Right.
where are we in terms of with traffic studies there?
No, we'll get into that in the rezoning, but traffic study is part of the rezoning condition.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? Any questions? Yeah.
Am I correct, this is something we dealt with in July, and there was an issue about this extra exit to come out of there? This is the lot that was acquired, am I correct?
Right, so it needed two exits, which I think it had on the original. This just kind of made it cohesive instead of having a void in the middle of the 36 acres or 38 acres.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. Any questions for the applicant? If not, call the case, please.
CU 2107, the Pacific Group of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property on Highway 138 East to the east of the intersection of Highway 138 and Flat Rock Road in land lots 62 and 63 of the 11th District. The property consists of 38.0 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision. District 4, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Okay. We've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve with conditions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Beam. All in favor? Motion carries. Call the next case, please.
RZ 2132, the Pacific Group of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA, residential agriculture, to R3, single-family residence, for property at 778 Highway 138 East in Land Lot 63 of the 11th District. The property consists of 1.17 plus or minus acres, and the request is for single-family residential. District 4, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Yes, again, this case was heard in July 8, 2021. Again, we're talking about the 1.17 acres of land that, since it was not in the original rezoning, has been brought back for us this evening. Again, the 1.17 acres is highlighted in the gray. The applicant is requesting the 1.17 acres be rezoned from RA to R2 sewer for the purpose of a conservation subdivision. The applicant has submitted a concurrent rezoning request, so the two will go together once it goes to the BOC for the 1.17 acres and the 36 acres. The applicant intends to develop the property as a conservation subdivision along with the subject property RZ 2115. The yield plan of the proposed development consists of 51 lots, as the Mr. Moore said earlier, went from 49 lots to 51 lots. Staff did recommend approval with the following conditions.
Does the board have questions for staff? No question for staff. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Again, my name is Steve Moore, Moorbass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, Mcdonough, Georgia, representing the Pacific Group on the rezoning request before you. Toussaint, I think, said it all. We're just requesting the R2 on sewer for the addition of 2 lots to the conservation subdivision previously approved. We're in agreement with the conditions as proposed by staff, and would welcome any questions you have. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Okay. If not, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this case. No one's coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Again, state your name and address for the record.
Mike Awad, 910 Highway 138, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281.
Okay.
I will come back to the same thing, sir. It's the same case that with the developer acquiring that 1.7, it definitely give him a relief to go ahead and proceed with the development. As far as the development, once he acquired this property, it's supposed to be a conversional subdivision. And from the platform that was introduced to the Planning and Zoning Department, there is some things that's not complying with the law as far as the subdivision itself, because he's leaving 40% out of the property as an open space area. That's including 50 feet buffer from my property in the back, which comes to about 7 acres. The only open area for those houses will be my property in the back. So with that being said, as I said, I'm losing my privacy because this is going to be a public access for everybody. By acquiring this house and having another entrance over there, he's opening this area in the back to the public. So this is going to be a subsequential damage to my property because it's a private property. All this area over there, starting from the bridge up till the traffic light, it's all big acreage and the private properties over there. I don't think the zoning is supposed to be happen regarding this house, especially that they're asking from RA to R3, while the rest of the property that's being acquired is RA Last time was pending approval from an RA to R2. Also, they didn't mention what they're gonna do with the same structure that's built on the property. Are they gonna demolish it or they're gonna leave it the same? Because it's definitely gonna be inconsistent with the building that's gonna be developed in this property. As far as this entrance, it's gonna come back again to the same traffic problem, which I don't wanna talk about it again, because definitely that's an in danger for the public safety, for the people who live in this area over there. I know we don't wanna talk about the legal issue right now, although I think it's supposed to be concerned because the applicant right here, once he submits an application, he's supposed to comply with the laws. But thank you so much for your time. Hopefully you can have a consideration for the people who live in the area and how this area is being developed, because really it's gonna be a dangerous area right there. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Pam Atkinson, 925 Highway 138 East, Stockbridge. I'm going to read what I had written for the first time we went through this. As a citizen of Henry County, my quality of everyday life depends on the decisions of the Planning and Zoning Committee of this county. I do not see the addition of 49 homes, I'm not sure if it's still that same number, with the only entrance and exit on Highway 138 as a wise addition to our area. It will create more traffic, more overcrowded schools, more overload on county resources. It will add more people to an infrastructure that cannot support it. Currently under construction, there is a project with as many as 860 dwellings that will be carried by Miller's Mill and Highway 138. The infrastructure is unprepared to support that, and and yet you are willing to support a decision to add more homes and residents. There will be a need to four-lane Highway 138 with these additions. A few years ago, when DOT widened the bridge at Big Cotton Indian Creek, there were numerous accidents and fatalities. That was before the traffic was in its current state. Woodland High School, with new and inexperienced drivers, as well as parents driving elementary and middle school children, will be entering 138 at this tiny traffic circle at Mosley. The 860 dwellings will add a minimum of 1,600 drivers to a road already maxed out. Because of constant backups on 75, 138 is constantly being used by commercial trucking traffic. This is not likely to improve with new residents. DOT has no jurisdiction on the approval of construction projects beyond the right-of-way, but DOT, as well as the current residents, are at the mercy of the wise and unwise decisions made by our planning and zoning committees. This means don't approve things that the infrastructure cannot support. People joke about how bad the traffic is in Henry County now. We don't want them to worsen. We don't want this to worsen where we are on the news weekly with another fatality on Highway 138, especially not with these young drivers. Thank you, but I do want you to at least think about, if you're going to approve this, you've already made up your minds, but I do want you to think about that it affects people in the county, and that you are just like when we are raising our children and we say no, sometimes no is a healthy word for them to hear. And sometimes you're saying no is a healthy word for our county. And it's not always all about the money. Money does make a difference, but it certainly isn't the only difference to be made here. More taxes dollars for these homes, I get that. Money in these contractors and developers' pockets. But at the right time, when things are done wisely and strategically, develop the county. But to dump this much on this road, and when you hear about the fatalities on 138, when you get all these drivers out there, I hope each and every one of you hear about every one of them so that you will be personally think about it and be accountable. If you're able to think that way, and I hope that you all are, that you can be accountable for the decision that you made to allow this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have 3 minutes, 55 seconds for anyone else wishing to speak in opposition. No one's coming forward. Do the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? Okay. I have a question for staff. There was a mention of a 50 feet buffer. What's the required buffer there?
Good question. What's the, oh, all right, so 50 feet is the required buffer.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so now, is that, and I guess back to the applicant, will you please come forward? There is a mention of a buffer. What do we have there, Mr. Moore? What's taking place there?
There's a 50-foot buffer, undisturbed buffer along the perimeter of the property, a 100-foot buffer along Highway 138, along the
Okay.
frontage of Highway 138.
So there is a 50 feet buffer for any adjacent properties?
Yes, sir, that's a code requirement for any adjacent property with a 100-foot buffer on any public right-of-way. And then it does have the over 40% open space, and a lot of the open space is in the back of the property, but it all connects to that 50-foot undisturbed buffer.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, call the case, please.
RZ 2132, the Pacific Group of Atlanta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agriculture to R3 Single Family Residence for property at 778 Highway 138 East in Land Lot 63 of the 11th District. The property consists of 1.17 plus or minus acres, and the request is for single-family residential. District 4, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve with conditions.
Okay, I have a motion to approve with conditions by Mrs. Walker. Do we have a second? Second. I have a second by Mr. Crowley. All right, all in favor? Motion carries. Call the next case, please.
RZ 2124, Pulte Homes of Alpharetta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agriculture to R3 Single Family Residence for property located at 1088 McGarity Road in land lots 119 and 120 of the 7th District. The property consists of 89.43 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. District 3, presented by Kamal As-Salam.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County.
Good evening.
The rezoning request in front of you is for property located at 1088 McGarity Road. The property is currently zoned RA, and the applicant is requesting a rezoning to R3 for a residential subdivision. The subject property is hashed in green and is surrounded by various City of Mcdonough subdivisions and properties, which are highlighted in light green. The property has a future land use designation of low-density residential, which does support the R3 zoning district. The site plan submitted in the application is shown on this slide. It consists of 128 lots that meet R3 zoning district standards. The applicant is requesting to rezone 89.43 plus or minus acres from RA residential agricultural to R3 single-family residence. The property has a future land use designation of low-density residential, which does allow up to 2.0 net dwelling units per acre. The applicant is proposing a subdivision with up to 128 lots, with 70% of the homes having a minimum of 2,800 square feet of heated floor space, and no more than 30% of the homes being ranch style with a minimum of 2,200 square feet of heated floor space. The property will tie into sewer provided by the City of Mcdonough, and the site plan provided meets all zoning standards and requirements.
Thank you.
Staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request with the following conditions, which I will read into the record as some of them have changed from the actual report. There are 14 conditions in total. Number 1, entrances shall be located such that the minimum intersection site distance and the minimum spacing requirement are met per the road's posted speed limit, and shall have a deceleration lane and an acceleration taper designed and constructed to Henry County DOT standards. The requirements of the TIS shall be constructed, including a left turn lane. Number 2, two entrances shall be required within the subdivision along McGarity Road, and developers may stub out towards the Anderson Point subdivision to the south for a third entrance or exit pending Anderson Point approval and development. Number 3, each home shall have a minimum 2-car garage. Garages shall be side entry where feasible. Number 4, all houses shall be built on site, no modular or manufactured homes. Number 5, all of the disturbed areas shall be sodded and landscaped. Number 6, all landscape buffers shall not be located on residential lots. Number 7, all single-family homes shall consist of 4 sides brick or stone with 20% accent material, which may include hardy plank. Number 8, 80% of the homes shall have a minimum of 2,800 square feet of heated floor space, and no more than 20% of the homes shall be ranch style with a minimum of 2,400 square feet of heated floor space. Number 9, an HOA will be required. Number 10, the subdivision shall be developed as an owner-occupied community. No more than 3% of the homes may be rented or leased, purchased at any one time. Looks like the numbers got mixed up, but I'll keep reading. Number 11, all stormwater management facilities shall be on their own lot and secured by a 5-foot-high fence. All driveways, access easements, emergency access easements must be paved and dirt-free. Number 12, each permitted home in the development shall be compatible with existing homes as determined by the Planning and Zoning Department. The Planning and Zoning Department is authorized to require the heated square footage to be increased and/or the architectural style to be modified in instances where incompatibility is determined. 13, the number of total dwelling units shall not exceed 128 or a net density of 1.77 dwelling units per acre, whichever is fewer number. Compliance with zoning conditions and development standards may further limit the number of dwelling units. And number 14, the developer/owner shall place a centralized mailbox unit outside of the public right-of-way for the use of all lots in the subdivision. This must be shown on the final plan for approval. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for staff?
Yes,
Okay.
a question. You had mentioned, I think one of the conditions was that all homes would be owner-occupied, fee simple owned, I believe. Is it? I think the intent is that all the lots would be ownership occupied.
Yes, sir.
And
So,
not rental.
yes, sir. So that condition is basically to restrict rental communities. So the commissioners don't seem to want that in Henry County. So that's why we have that condition in almost every new rezoning.
Okay, the reason I raise that issue for those of you on our board that don't know, we have a subdivision that, and it was annexed into the city of Mcdonough. It started off to be a fee simple ownership, type situation, and then all of a sudden we saw signs go up that homes for rent or homes for lease, and I think just about the whole subdivision is that way, and it's really caused a lot of concern in the area where I live and throughout the 3rd District. And so that's why I feel strongly about that condition. Also, if you could tell me what the minimum lot size and dimensions of R3 is, say, as opposed to the R2S district?
Yes, sir. So R3 zoning, the lot sizes are 18,000 square feet. R2 is 22,000. The applicant is proposing 18,000 square feet for their lot sizes.
Okay. And I think that this property is surrounded on just about all sides by the city. And I think that that there's an agreement that the city would provide the sewer, but water would be served by the Henry County Water Authority. Is that still the situation?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Yes, Ms. Renaud.
In your recommendation additions, did you say there needed to be a third entrance or a possible third entrance?
So a possible third entrance, the applicant came to us with the idea that they could tie into the Anderson Point subdivision to meet their second entrance requirement. But planning and zoning thinks it's the best idea to still require 2 entrances on McGarity, which is possible. And they can tie in to the other subdivision if that subdivision comes to an agreement. So the more entrances for a subdivision this size, the better. So that's why we decided to make the 2 entrances a requirement anyway.
So the proposal plan that we have right now doesn't indicate that third entrance?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Richard.
I thought of one more question. The development that is going on directly south of this property, I believe that's in the city, but what is if you know what the lot sizes are for that tract?
I'm not sure, but the same developers for this case are doing that one as well, so perhaps Mr. Welch will be able to give us insight on that.
It appears that they would be smaller than what is being requested here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all for now.
Any additional questions for staff? If not, applicant, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Just click down if you need to go to the next one. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, mask on or off at the mic?
You can take it off.
I'm sorry, say again?
Mask on or off of the mic?
Off, please, so
Yes,
we can hear you.
Thank you.
Mr. Welch.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Andy Welch. I'm representing Pulte Homes in this rezoning request. The staff has analyzed it correctly. It's a very straightforward request, compliant with your future land use map. The request here has shown all the subdivisions you see here, except for Brightwood, which is off some distance away off of Airline Road. All of these are subdivisions that are zoned within the city of Mcdonough. And in fact, the land to the south on this map here is the Anderson Point subdivision that we were talking about connecting to. And I'll point out the lot sizes in it. It's obviously wooded here, but it's being developed presently. To the west, this is land owned by the Hardeman Estate, and that property has also been zoned in the city of Mcdonough with lot sizes of 12,000 and lower in terms of the size of the lots. So as you can see with the property, it's surrounded by development that's all zoned in the city of Mcdonough except for this particular tract, and our preference was to keep it within the county. Looking at those subdivisions there, and to answer some questions that were raised by some of the members of the board, the proposed development has an 18,000 square foot zoning lot minimum per your own code with 128 lots. Arnold Estates, which is across the street, and 62 lots at 12,000 square foot lots, so smaller. Brightwood, which is in the county, that's an 18,000 square foot lot subdivision R3. And the Clearwater Point is a 10,000 square foot lot at 361 lots, and that's just off to the angle of this property at the corner. Stapleton Park, this is 7,500 square foot lots, set 76. I think that is the one that I think Mr. Risher was talking about as being a rental subdivision. Bridal Ridge is 79, just under 8,000 square foot lots. And there's some mixtures in there. I think there's a few 10,000 square foot lots as well. And then Windsor Estates is 14,000. The one that was to the south that we're talking about is a 12,000 square foot lot that is in the city of Mcdonough. And the request here is the staff's conditions you've seen. This is we got an iteration of staff conditions. I think yesterday we've looked through those and gone through them to make some suggested changes to them. At number 2, we've asked for there to be one entrance off of McGarity Road with the secondary entrance to be through the Anderson Point subdivision to the south. If we're not able to connect, however, we would put the 2 entrances on McGarity Road. So it's going to have 2 access points either way. Our preference is to go through the other subdivision since it's a joint subdivision being built, both of them by Pulte Homes. And then the second modification is that the staff is required, and this was a new one for us, all landscape buffers to not be included in the residential lots. That would require, and if you'll look back at the plan, you'll see that there's an entire huge buffer along the eastern side, and then also 2 different subdivisions in this to the south that would have to be maintained by the homeowner association, a 25-foot buffer area that would have to be maintained by the homeowner association in the backyards of these homes. And we didn't think that would be conducive for the homeowner association or the lot owners themselves. So we've asked to strike that particular condition. In addition, we've reworded the condition number 7 regarding the makeup of the homes, requesting that they all be, front facade would consist of brick, stone, stucco. And we actually have this where it would be a mixture of the hardy plank cementous fiberboard. On the rest of the building, vinyl products would be, of course, prohibited except for soffits, eaves, and fascia. And then to avoid a monotonous look of the subdivision, we are including a minimum of 20% of the homes will be 4-sided brick. And then within that, given some architectural credit so that 20% to 50% of accent materials could be a mixture of board and batten, cementous fiberboard, wood, shake, etc. Just try to mix that facade up so it has character. Each of the 4-sided brick buildings would have character. And then also there would be water tables required around all the buildings, so all the homes would have a water table at the bottom. The other condition, we struck the one dealing with 12 because this allows for tremendous discretion in the building process to the planning staff. We have models that we'll be using, and we want to be able to build those models consistent with these conditions. So we don't think that condition would be necessary. And then also, as far as density goes, we've already calculated out the yield of lots, and as you recall, it being 128. So we struck through that language there because density calculations vary and they change over time. We have, as far as the future lands map goes, we'd be able to put 2 units to the acre in terms of density, but that rarely works out exactly that way when you actually factor in all the floodplain, the detention ponds, and the fact this property existing has 2 lakes on it already that will be utilized and integrated into the open space, one of which will be integrated in the open space, the other will be a large estate lot off of McGarity Road, and that lake will be a part of that home. So that's the sum of it, and I'll be happy to take any questions that you have on that. Thank you.
Mr. Wood. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Yes, Ms. Wright.
On the site plan, I guess that was the original family home at one time, and and I'm glad to see that it's going to be retained. And there would be a possible tie-in with the subdivision that's being developed. Is that still your thoughts?
That is the plan, yes. Yes, so that you'll have which creates a good dynamic between the 2 subdivisions. You'll have 18,000 square foot lot or greater subdivision attached to the Anderson Point subdivision, which would have the 12,000 square foot lot. So it creates a little bit of a different price point dynamic within those 2 developments.
And you're comfortable with the staff's recommendation about the ownership issue, that each lot would be owner occupied Well, of course, that there would be a HOA to govern that to some extent, but I think the intent is that all the lots would be owner occupied and not.
We've heard the same complaints.
And not rented, of course, so. And let's see, with the proposed improvements on McGarity Road, you're comfortable with that?
Are you referring to the condition number 1 in terms of the site distance requirements? Or the entrances on McGarity Road?
Well, I guess all of the conditions that are in the staff report concerning McGarity, Drive.
We have, in the revised conditions that we submitted and that I have here before you, if you need a copy, the first condition, there was no concerns with that one. That's the site distance requirements and the entrances on McGarity Road. Our preference, however, is only to have one, and that would be right across from Arnold Estates. And the reason for that is, as Mr. Risher, I know you know McGarity Road well. There's a roundabout that's supposed to go in at Airline.
Yes.
There are multiple cuts. As you get to this portion of McGarity Road, there are numerous cuts in McGarity Road, beginning with Arnold Estates. Clearwater Point has 2. You have a daycare center that's there. You have a residence that's also there. You have a church and a through road there. You have multiple cuts through there. And in all honesty, traffic flow through that area would be better served, in our opinion, to have one access point right across from Arnold, so that as you come to that intersection between those two, you'd have the ability to make those turns. Beyond that, traffic would then flow naturally down the road as it does today. You put an extra cut there, then you've got another stop point between Clearwater Point and this subdivision. That would eliminate that if you would allow us to go through Anderson and have that be the other access point. And when we were designing this, we specifically did not put a cut onto Lake Dow Road because of the nature of the curve that you see there. That would have created, I think, a dangerous interaction. So going through Anderson Point to the south and allowing it to come out on Lake Dow Road, where there's a much larger stretch of straightaway on Lake Dow Road, made the most sense from a safety standpoint, in our opinion.
Yeah, I think that the curve on Lake Dow Road would be too sharp to allow an entrance there. And I think it's only a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone on that area due to the roadway geometry.
So with condition number 1, Mr. Risher, that dealt with the minimum standards in terms of the intersection site distance and spacing, obviously we'd keep that in there, because if we don't connect with Anderson Point subdivision, you'd want that spacing to be there where we would put 2 entrances on McGarity, because we'd have to. We would want to put in that curve.
Okay. Any additional questions for, yes, Ms. Randolph?
Mr. Welch, so there are 2 existing lakes on that property, or ponds, they're not really lakes, and then you've added several. Is that because of concerns for water?
Those are detention ponds in the engineering design. We wanted to show you sort of where those would flow. We've also buffered off where there are springs, so natural springs on the property. So if you can probably see it better on your screen, but where the entrance is across from Arnold Estates, there's a green space area there that's buffered off. There's a spring there. So we're protecting that spring that feeds into that lake that you see there, or that pond. And then the others are, there are some detention ponds that are located, and I don't know if you have in your application, if you have the copy of the application, you'll have the lot layout that's in black and white, and you can see the distinction between the existing ponds and the detention ponds. But those detention ponds are there to obviously capture and retain the water. We're not using the developer's not using the lakes as detention facilities. They'll be maintained in their natural state, which is probably better for the environment. There's another spring head also for the other pond that you see sort of in that greenish, more highlighted greenish area. If you follow that all the way down, there's a spring there. So that's also protected under this plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Crawley?
Yes, I just need a little bit more clarification on your presentation for the conditions number 10.
Yes.
I noticed that you have no more than 5% of the homes may be rented or leased, purchased at any one time. And I think the staff, you had 3%. So I was trying to figure out which one, is it the 3% or the 5%?
So staff is asking for 3%. Mr. Welch is asking for 5%.
Actually, staff report.
And there was a
Staff report says 5, the word 5, and then has in parentheses 3. And so we changed the 3 to a 5 to reflect the word 5 in the language used by staff.
Well, that's a typo.
Okay, thanks.
And I believe the commissioner for this particular district has been using a 5% rule on previous subdivisions that have been approved in District 3. Because the truth of the matter is that we all know that people are transient, so there is going to be a period of time where some homes are rented for a period of time. Could be military service, it could be other aspects of just transitioning from one place to the other. So a complete bar would make those transitions impossible. And so not to make this sort of, because you don't know who's going to actually need to rent, right? You don't know who's going to have to leave or have a rental period. But the 5% rule allows some flexibility so that can occur, but doesn't allow for the complete rental subdivision that you have at Stapleton Park, which is just up the road.
Thank you. Any additional questions for, yes?
I just said when I was looking at number 8, where we have there's going to be, it said a minimum of, the staff said 2,400 square feet for the 20% ranch-style homes, but then that was lined out and it's 2,200.
That's correct. That was
so that's what it's.
That was our change on our part. We changed it. The staff had 2,400 square feet for the ranch, yes, ma'am. And we in our application we were asking for the rezoning. We were proposing a 2,200 square foot ranch, obviously because it's a single-story house, and so it may be smaller in that nature.
All right, any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated, sir.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'd like to allot 5 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor. No one's coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. I don't see anyone coming forward. Does the board have additional questions for staff or the applicant? Any additional questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, if not, call the case, please.
RZ 2124, Pulte Homes of Alpharetta, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agriculture to R3 Single Family Residence for property located at 1088 McGarity Road in land lots 119 and 120 of the 7th District. The property consists of 89.43 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. District 3, presented by Kamal As-Salam.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the request for rezoning to R3, single-family residential, with the 14 conditions that were presented by the planning and zoning staff.
Have a motion by Mr. Richard. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Second by Mr. VM. All in favor? Motion carries. Call the next case, please.
26.
RZ 2126, Samir Patel of Mcdonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural and C1 Neighborhood Commercial to R2 Single Family Residence for property located at 1376 Old Conyers Road in Land Lot 96 of the 12th District and Land Lot 96 of the 11th District. The property consists of 3.194 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a residential lot split. District 4, presented by Kamal As-Salam.
Good evening again, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The rezoning request in front of you is for property located at 1376 Old Conyers Road. The property is currently zoned RA and C1, and the applicant is requesting a rezoning to R2 for a residential lot split. The subject property is highlighted in green and is northwest of the Brookwood Estates R1 and R2 subdivision. The property has a future land use designation of low-density residential, which does support the R2 zoning district. The site plan submitted in the application is shown on the slide. It shows 4 lots that meet R2 zoning district standards. The applicant is requesting to rezone 3.194 plus or minus acres from RA and C1 to R2 on septic for the purpose of a 4-parcel lot split. The property has a future land use designation of low-density residential, which allows up to 2.0 net dwelling units per acre. The site plan provided meets all zoning district standards and requirements. Staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request with the following conditions. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Does the board have questions for staff? If not, we'd like the applicant to come forward, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, board. My name is Faisal Supariola, 900 Torrey Pines, Mcdonough, Georgia. This is a pretty much straightforward lot split request. It's already attached to Brookwood Estates, and we're just expanding the lot there are into 4 homes. The only change I would like to propose is on the condition 1, Brookwood Estates minimum houses are 15 to 1,600 square feet on an average. 2,500 square feet house in that little Brookwood Estates area would be too large. So our proposal was 1,600 square feet, and we would like to see if we can get that.
Does the board have questions for the applicant? Okay. Well, I have a question, and you indicated that. Now, what size homes are in the area now?
It's about 15 to 1,600 square feet.
15 to 1,600?
Yeah, these are very old, like 40, 50-year-old homes.
Okay, now the question goes to staff. Now, why do we recommend 2,500 square feet?
The commissioners like to see bigger houses now, and
Okay.
that's really the only reason.
Yeah, in that neighborhood, it won't look similar. 2,500 square foot homes.
He is
Those are
correct.
large.
The homes in Brookwood are about 1,500, 1,600 square feet.
Okay. Now, based on staff recommendation, if the board chose to go with the 2,500 square feet, are you prepared to move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, what I would like to see, I can't speak for the board, but I would like to see all this worked out prior to presenting it to us. If there is a concern with the square footage, I would prefer if you guys work it out with the planning and zoning prior to bringing it to the board.
Okay.
Okay. But thank you.
All right.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, you may be seated, sir. We'd like to allot 7 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? I'm sorry. Did you have a question? All right, thank you. All right. We would like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Okay. No one's coming forward. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? Any additional questions? Okay. Ms.
I just wanted to make it be known that I am a personal friend with the presenter that just presented, so I wanted to make that public knowledge.
Okay, thank
before
you.
you voted.
So you're withdrawing from
Yeah, I
voting on
was
this?
voting.
Okay, all right. All right. If there is no additional questions, we'd like to call the case, please.
RZ 2126, Samir Patel of Mcdonough, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural and C1 Neighborhood Commercial to R2 Single Family Residence for property located at 1376 Old Conyers Road in Land Lot 96 of the 12th District and Land Lot 96 of the 11th District. The property consists of 3.194 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a residential lot split. District 4, presented by Kamal As-Salam.
Okay. We've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve with staff conditions.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the next case, please.
COMP AM 1909, LGS Holding Group 2013 LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests an amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located to the south of Old Highway 3 and Steel Road, west of North Steel Drive, east of Lovejoy Road, and to the north of Highway 81 in land lots 166, 187, and 188 of the 6th District. The property consists of 301.69 plus or minus acres, and the request to amend the future land use map designation from low-density residential and industrial to medium-density residential. District 2, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Good evening again. Yes, as the announcement said, this property is located along between Highway 81 to south, Old Highway 3 and Steel Road to the north. This is the aerial of the location. You have to the, as is oriented on this map, to the north is Old 3, to the south is Highway 81. This is the current zoning map. The area that's hashed in green is the subject property. Again, this is the future land use map designating low-density residential and medium-density residential. And this is the, I guess you say, concept plan that was used as part of the DRI that was conducted on this property. The future land use map designation for the subject property consists of a mixed use of low-density residential and medium-density residential and industrial. The comprehensive plan amendment request is to amend the flume designation of portions of the subject property from low-density residential and industrial to medium-density residential, which allows the developments with a density of up to 6 dwelling units per acre. Medium density residential flume designation is required to support the rezoning request and proposed density of 5.4 dwelling units per acre. Again, the applicant has requested a concurrent rezoning from RA, R2, and M1 to RS for the purpose of single-family residential and multifamily townhome development. The subject property is located in the area designated for primary of low-density residential and medium-density residential, and the land use on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. A large portion of this subject property already has a medium-density residential flume designation. Additionally, the replacement of the industrial use, which currently exists on a portion of the subject property with a residential use, is complementary to the existing and proposed residential development within the area. The character of this area is primarily suburban. Staff did recommend approval of the request to change the future land use map designation from industrial and low density residential to medium density residential. And I'll ask any questions you may have.
Does the board have questions for staff? Okay, Mr. Richard.
Yep.
This is a very large project. I think 613 single-family dwellings and 525 townhomes, according to the staff report. Is there an Atlanta Regional Commission impact study required?
Yes, sir. Actually, it was already conducted. It was conducted, maybe a couple of years ago. I can't remember.
Okay, and of course it hasn't been done yet, and of course we're just a recommending body. But is this something that would be done before a final action by the Board of Commissioners, or?
Yes, sir. The DRI has already been conducted.
Yes.
It's already been completed.
Oh, it's been completed
Yes,
already?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, that's not a concern then, but thank you.
Any additional questions for our staff? If not, we'd like the applicant to come forward, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Michelle Battle with Battle Law, here representing the applicant. Just to give a little context to this particular matter, we've actually been working on this for the last couple of years. We initially had submitted the application for this project, and it was withdrawn or tabled because there was consideration given into annexing this into the city of Lovejoy. This property is immediately adjacent to the city. I think I took that slide off actually, but which one? Which one? The down button. Okay, sorry about that. This property, again, is immediately adjacent to the city of Lovejoy, and there was some discussion with the city with regards to annexing the property in. However, it became apparent that there was issues when we brought it before the Board of Commissioners, and they actually denied the request to do the annexation on 2 occasions. So Commissioner D. Clemens is very familiar with this particular project, and it was agreed that we would bring it back before this board for review. Since the original application was filed, there are now 610 single-family detached units that we are seeking, still 525 townhomes. We are in the Highway Corridor Overlay District, and we are asking for the medium-density residential on the comp plan. We believe that change to the medium-density residential is appropriate in light of the fact that half of this site already has that designation on it, and we would like to be consistent for the entirety of the property. I can go into more detail during the rezoning component, but again, we believe this is appropriate for the comp plan change based on the existing MDR that's already on the site. This project has gone through the DRI review process. We were recommended for approval through the notice of decision. There are improvements to the right-of-way in the area that we will have to make, and we'll put that forward to you in the next presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does the board have questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, you may be seated, thank you. We'd like to allot the remaining 8 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor. I don't see anyone coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. All right, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Mary Ackerman. I live at 3914 Highway 81 West in Hampton. And my property, it's about an acre, butts up to the 300 acres that they want to put the townhomes. It looks like 1135. I understood it to be 1,000 units. And you stop and think about that, and you put 1,000 units. And the reason I'm familiar, my dad owned this property. And my dad and I built my house where I live now in 1986, and I've been there. I just retired and thought I could sit out in my kitchen and look out and see all the nice things. I got a problem with shoving 1,000 units or more into 300 acres. I've got a potential of 5,000 new neighbors tucked right up behind my house. And the previous people, I guess it's the same people, but the man that was down there had a sod farm. And it was very little noise. He was a great neighbor and no problems, but they haven't, and I think it's the same people that own it. And now they've decided to develop it and put all these single-family dwellings in townhouses. And I was told it was 1,000 units. She just had said 1,135 total, single dwelling and the multi. That's a lot of people. That's gonna have one heck of an impact. Don't know where the accesses are. I understand the man down at the end that had the pond sold it to LGS Holdings. There's going to be a definite increase in noise, a strain on the school system. Traffic is going to be horrendous. It's already building up. And there's a potential for violence. You know, when you get that many people jammed into that many acres, I mean, it could be real tough. There is a buffer there. The last, and I believe it was you, and there may have been some of the same people on the board, they made them put a buffer, leave, not put in, but leave a buffer there. And I think it's, I want to say 75 or 100 foot, but don't hold me to it, I'm not positive. But it did help keep the noise down, and there was still like woods when I look out the back. It wasn't that drastic of a change, although they did thin out a lot of the trees so they could level it to put the sod in. But it was livable, and we had a great neighbor. The man that lived down there, he was wonderful. If I had any problems or had a bad storm, but anyway, I won't take too much more in case is there anybody else that wants to speak? And I was a little bit worried about the sewer system and where the accesses are. It looks like these 1,000 units are going to be jammed in about 1/3 of an acre, and that's what they did to Pop's house down in Lovejoy too. So, and I know they want to make money. They've already made a killing on it, and I guess I can't really oppose because they bought the land. It's theirs. However, I would ask the board and the chair to please keep the buffer there and maybe keep a buffer for the rest of our neighbors that are along 81. I don't think there's any houses on 3, is there? not 3, Steel. Is there any houses over there? On the other side of the road, though.
Ma'am, if
Okay.
you will, address the board, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was asking him to, okay. Anyway, my concern was the increase in traffic, and I would hope that the board would consider leaving the buffer that's there and maybe putting a little bit more in. That's a lot of people in that area, a lot. When it was all nature, deer, fox, and it's gone. Or buy me out for $500,000 and I'll go to Wyoming. I'm just kidding. I appreciate your time. I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to speak, but thank you for your time. Please consider that. Thank you.
We have 5 minutes and 41 seconds. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
I just really want to ask questions. James Butler, 3850 Highway 81 West.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sir.
Sorry. James Butler, 3850 Highway 81 West, Hampton, Georgia.
Okay.
Buffers. In back of, I have the Christmas tree farm right there adjacent. They go around me on 3 sides. And there, in back of me, Mr. Ackerman, when he owned it, he was talking about there was a conservation zoning on the property right in back of me. And it's, there was some kind of a hole. It was an area that couldn't be used. Are they planning on using that? And what kind of buffer is being planned for this?
Okay.
I've got trees all the way around except on that one side, and looks like the house is going to be backed right up against us.
Okay. Those are questions, sir, that you would have to address with the county itself. These are questions that we may or may not have the answer to. So those are questions that you would have to address with the county in terms of the buffers that's actually out there adjacent to your property and their property.
Okay, well, if I've got a buffer around me, I'm fine with it. And that other area in back, I'm not sure they can build on that.
Okay.
But it looked like they're planning on it. That's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions? I'm sorry, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? We have 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? If not, we'd like to, does the board have additional questions for the applicant or staff? For that? For staff? Yes. Okay.
So this is, we're asking for a change in the comprehensive plan, and the density is, do we have a DOT assessment of this?
So I think that was part of the DRI that was done. They look at traffic and they look at access, and I'm sure the applicant can speak more to that. And I'm trying to see, as far as the conditions concerned, if that's addressed there. Yeah. So basically, the DRI will address traffic issues.
I don't want to.
I'm sorry.
I didn't want to speak out of turn.
Okay. Did you have questions for the applicant, Mr. Richard?
There was a reference in the reports to expand the right-of-way of Steel Drive, which is on the eastern boundary of this property.
Yes, sir.
Are the owners also considering possibly, making some contribution to widen and pave that road as part of their project?
Yeah, we are. I'm going to let our engineer respond to that one.
Okay.
I'm going to ask John Palmer to come up. And I do have a slide that actually has all of the right-of-way improvements that we are required to make. It's in my rezoning presentation, so I was going to go over that then. But John.
So real quick, Mr. Randolph, to your point, condition number 1, 2, and 3 actually addresses traffic and turn lanes and things of that nature.
And John Palmer, 235 Corporate Center Drive, Stockbridge, with Falcon Design. We're the engineering company, and I believe that a condition in the zoning that comes next is going to address the developer needing to improve Steel Drive, bring it up to standard, because right now it's just a gravel road. And we're aware of that, and we understand that.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
additional questions for the applicants? Mr. Richard? Did you have additional questions?
No.
Oh, okay. If there's no questions, I'd like to call the case, please.
COMP AM 1909, LGS Holding Group 2013, LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests an amendment to the comprehensive plan for property located to the south of Old Highway 3 and Steel Road, west of North Steel Drive, east of Lovejoy Road, and to the north of Highway 81 in land lots 166, 187, and 188 of the 6th District. The property consists of 301.69 plus or minus acres, and the request to amend the future land use map designation from low-density residential and industrial to medium-density residential. District 2, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Okay, we heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Crowley. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Richard. All in favor? Motion carries. Call the next case, please.
RZ 1916, LGS Holding Group 2013, LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural, R2 Single Family Residence, and M1 Light Manufacturing to RS Residential Suburban for property located to the south of Old Highway 3 and Steel Road, west of North Steel Drive, east of Lovejoy Road, and to the north of Highway 81 in land lots 166, 187, and 188 of the 6th District. The property consists of 301.69 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential and townhome development. District 2, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Again, this is the case we just heard. So this is the rezoning for this location. And again, this is the concept plan that was approved with the DRI. The DRI actually was conducted in February of 2020. Again, the applicant is seeking to rezone 301.69 acres from RA-R2 and M1 to RS for the purpose of a mixed single-family, multifamily townhome development consisting of 610 single-family homes and 525 townhouses as per the site plan dated August 20, 2019. Additionally, there's 26 acres on the subject property that has been designated for a future farm-to-table development. The applicant has since clarified that the farm-to-table portion of the site is to be like a farmer's market, but I'm sure they can expand on that once they present. A large portion of the subject property is within the Highway Corridor Overlay District. The applicant's request meets the threshold established by Georgia Department of Community Affairs, as we've discussed through the DRI. The future land use map designation for the subject property consists of a mixture of low-density residential and medium-density residential and industrial. The applicant has requested a concurrent comp plan amendment that we just discussed to amend the future land use designation of the portion of the subject property from low-density and industrial to medium-density residential. Staff recommends denial of the request rezoning of 300.69 acres from RA, R2, and M1 to RS, which is residential suburban. But staff does recommend approval of the rezoning of the subject project to RS and RA as follows, and with the following conditions listed below. There's 31 conditions that I will have displayed. There's quite a few conditions. Let me zoom out a little bit for me. So there's quite a few conditions, and in those conditions, we do talk about traffic, the results from the DRI, preservation of the 50-foot right-of-way from North Steel Drive, access to and from North Steel Drive, steel road improvements, which is actually the number 5 condition, and several other conditions throughout the project. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, does the board have questions for our staff? Okay, I have one question, Mr. Design. The highway overlay district, have that been discussed with the applicant, and are they prepared to meet all the conditions of the highway overlay?
So the short answer is yes. There is one portion that's in that's kind of up in the air, the townhouse portion, because it doesn't necessarily meet or is adjacent to the state highways, but staff has conditioned for the townhomes to actually meet the highway corridor overlay.
Okay, so you have a proposal for them to meet the requirements of the overlay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I guess I would have to ask them, are they prepared to do so?
Yes, they will. I'm sure she'll address that.
Oh, okay. All right. Does it, Mr. Richard?
Yes, I have a question. I guess it would be towards the applicant. Is there any estimate as to what the build-out period would be for this large-scale development, so that the impact would be spread over quite a number of years?
Mr. Risher, actually, condition number 30 speaks to that. Said the project shall be phased to allow no more than 250 dwelling units to be constructed within a year period, time period, and it has, I guess, a sunset of 10 years.
Anything else, Mr.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address again for the record?
Michelle Battle, again with Battle Law, 3562 Haversham at North Lake, Tucker, Georgia.
Okay.
So, as the young lady indicated when she came up here, this property used to be the sod farm, and it had been that for quite some time. The applicant has acquired over the years additional parcels and has elected to redevelop the property for the proposed project. We know that this project will take a period of at least 10 years for full build-out. We do understand and know that we will not be coming in here and simply putting in 1,000 units in a year or two. This is going to take a process. It will be phased in over time. And so the impact of the project will be very incremental from that perspective. With regards to the site, as you know, we are immediately adjacent to the city of Lovejoy. We are across the street basically from the prison. This property is in a fairly rural area. With regards to some of the comments that came from the folks, we are certainly happy to meet with them and work on any additional buffers in order to protect their properties. But what we know is that this area with 301 acres is largely undeveloped. I mean, that sod farm has been there for quite some time. When we met with the city of Lovejoy, some of the things that they were looking for were to have this farm-to-table component, and we really thought that that was a vital piece of the redevelopment of the site, and thought that it was really an opportunity to work cooperatively with government to provide a benefit not only to the surrounding community but also to these particular residents. about that. This property, and this is the area right now that has a zoning of industrial. Staff has recommended that it go to RA. We had originally asked for RS for the entire site, but that makes sense. It will be agricultural. It's roughly 26 acres that we are proposing to provide to the city of Lovejoy. And what the intent here is, you may be very familiar with the general store that they operate immediately adjacent to this site currently. Well, their program, if you are not aware, is to provide a card that they give to each Lovejoy resident, and they have a certain amount of money on that card that allows them to come in and get free fruits and vegetables within the general store, and then they can buy anything additional. If you want to go in, if you don't live in the city of Lovejoy and you want to buy something, you can do so. What we know is that this project will also expand onto the site with that 26 acres, but it will also be available to the residents within the community. So we thought that that was a real plus for this community to be able to have that farm-to-table experience, as well as being able to have available to them the fruits and vegetables that are sold on the site. What you may also know is that they grow this produce on site currently. They will be keeping this component of the project and expanding onto that 26 acres to have additional availability to cultivate the land for additional produce. In terms of the amenities that will be offered within the community, the residents, again, will receive that card from the general store that allows them to obtain the fruits and vegetables. There'll be 3 separate walking trails that are around the ponds. There are ponds that are currently located on the site. There will also be detention facilities as shown on the site plan. There are multiple amenity areas. There's a play area with benches, and there's also tot lots that will be shown. The DRI required a number of improvements, which we've shown here on the screen. Some were system improvements, but these are the actual project improvements that we will be required to install, and that is a part of the conditions that have been proposed by staff. And so the improvements to Steel Road are a part of those requirements. In terms of elevations, we are obviously looking at an extended period of time, but these are some of the types of homes that we would anticipate being built within this community. As you can see, they are a mixture of stone, brick, larger size homes that we would anticipate for the most part being built with varying price ranges. You can imagine that we can't predict the future for what's going to be the price ranges in 10 years from now, but we certainly anticipate that these will be homes that will start probably somewhere in that $300,000 and move up from there, $250,000, $300,000, and moving up. There is also the townhome component of the project. There are some tweaks that we will be working with staff over the course of the next month or so as we're waiting for the BOC hearing to come up. As we said, we will certainly meet with the individuals that are here that have indicated their opposition to try and address their issues, including having some additional buffering and maybe plantings in order to preserve their privacy, particularly in their rear yards. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, I believe Ms. Walker, you have a question?
I just have a question since you mentioned it and brought it up there about, you said there's going to be recreation areas for, are there going to be like a regular park? Did you guys set aside land for the Lovejoy to develop it as a park, or do you develop the park?
Well, we will be developing the open space areas and the park areas. One of the nice things about the site is that we've got 2 large ponds that are currently on the site, and the walking trails are near those ponds and will allow access kind of around the perimeter of those ponds, and that's also some of the areas where the amenities will be in the tot lots and things of that nature. So those are, and the pocket parks are things that the developer will be installing. The 26 acres will be maintained and operated by the city of Lovejoy.
Okay, after you develop these recreation areas and everything,
Who's going to maintain them? The Mandatory Homeowners Association will be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the amenity areas that are located on site. There hasn't really been any discussion about actually dedicating any of those park areas to the city, to the county. I don't think we're necessarily opposed to that, but that has not been raised as a point of discussion. Oh, and it is a gated community. Sorry, very good, important.
It's gonna be
And it is a
gated?
gated community. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any additional questions for the applicant? I guess back to my original question in terms of the overlay district. Are you guys prepared to meet all the requirements of the overlay?
We are prepared to meet the overlay requirements. There are a couple of tweaks with the townhome component, and I think that's what Toussaint was kind of alluding to. So we've got to work through a couple of issues, what we consider to be fairly minor, but things that we want to make sure that we're all on the same page about.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions for the applicant? Ms. Randolph?
Yes, so the buffer, the current staff recommendation is 20 foot.
Yes, ma'am.
Around that Christmas tree farm, is that possible to have something that's more?
Yes, ma'am. And so that's why we said we wanted to meet with the gentleman to discuss that, and I'm sure that we can come up with a buffer that would be more than reasonable for him. So again, we're open to that. That doesn't, have a major impact on the layout, so we feel like we can address that issue for him, and as well for the other young lady.
Any additional questions? And I think that was one of the things I was going to address. That was other issues concerning buffers, not just with the Christmas tree, but I think it would be great if you guys strongly considered buffers throughout that area.
Yes, sir.
With that many, with that larger scale of property.
And remember, it's such a huge piece of property. Certainly the net density is at about 5, but from a total acreage perspective, we are under 4 units per acre. We're at 3.74 units per acre. So it's a tremendously large site, and again, it will be developed over a period of time, and we will have ample opportunity before we get to the Board of Commissioners to meet with the adjacent property owners to work through the buffer issues and to make sure that they are protected.
Okay, one other question. Now, have issues been addressed with the water department and sewer in terms of?
Yes, there have been meetings. John Palmer has been working with those departments. It looks like he's getting ready to come up and say something, so I'm going to give him the mic.
Because that is a large scale. How do we plan to address and deal with that?
Thank you. John Palmer, Falcon Design, 235 Corporate Center Drive, Stockbridge. We met with the Water Authority about 2 years ago. We fully designed the sewer system that would take this development to the existing sewer system with them. And they've since they gave us a letter 2 years ago saying there's capacity. We updated that letter again about a month ago, confirming that there's still capacity for this development for sewer and water.
Okay. And you guys have done your due diligence to ensure the county that we're not going to be overloading a system that exists, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We're putting in a 12-inch line, which is the normal is an 8-inch. We're putting in a 12-inch, then it gradually moves up to a 10-inch to an 8-inch within the development. So.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any additional questions for the applicants? At this time, we'd like to allot 3 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor. No one's coming forward. We'd also like to allot 10 minutes for anyone else wishing to speak in opposition. I don't want the opposition to be distracted over there. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. If the opposition have anything else to say, you have 10 minutes to do so.
Mary Ackerman again, 3914 Highway 81 West in Hampton. The young lady from Battle Law is getting our name and phone number, and we'll possibly work on a buffer. Our world's going to change real quick, even within 10 years. I'm 71, so if I live long enough, I'm going to see all this. I don't really oppose it. It's just such a culture shock. You know, when you've had 300 acres and it was woods, and then it went to sod, and the neighbor was wonderful. I mean, he was great. And then all of a sudden, we're getting all these houses in. It's just, I mean, it's like, wow. But hopefully, she's getting our name, and we'll get her card, and we'll try to maybe work on a little bit of a buffer. The traffic's still gonna be horrendous. Apparently, they're working on the sewer. There is an issue of over, you know, like the schools, though. When you potentially have 5,000 new neighbors right behind your house, these kids are gonna be going to Hampton, you know? And what she was talking about in the farm and everything, I thought that was in Clayton County, not Henry. So, huh?
It's in Henry, not Clayton.
It's not Clayton? Okay. Well, I thought that Clayton manufactured, you know, did all that. Okay, that was all I wanted to say. I just wanted you all to know that it is a major culture shock. Major. But thank you for considering it. They're considering the buffer. That's the best we can ask for because it's their property.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? No one's coming forward. Call the case, please. Well, let me ask, does the board have any additional questions for the applicant or staff? If not, call the case, please.
RZ 1916, LGS Holding Group 2013, LLC of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural, R2 Single Family Residence, and M1 Light Manufacturing to RS Residential Suburban for property located to the south of Old Highway 3 and Steel Road, west of North Steel Drive, east of Lovejoy Road, and to the north of Highway 81 in land lots 166, 187, and 188 of the 6th District. The property consists of 301.69 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential and townhome development. District 2, presented by Toussaint Kirk.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
A motion to deny the request from RA, R2, and M1 to RS, but the approval of RS and RA with conditions outlined by the staff.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Crawley. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second by Mr. Risher. Any discussion?
I got one quick question.
Mr.
So you said approval to RS and RA, correct? Okay.
Okay. And that's, and being that we're in discussion, that's the same recommendation that the county has, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay.
With the conditions, yes, sir.
So we have a motion by Mr. Crawley, second by Mr. Risher. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.